Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. St. Kitts and Nevis' Prime Minister leads a delegation to Washington to World Bank's spring meetings. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Friday, 14th April 2023. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Multi-Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. Prime Minister and Minister of Finance of St. Kitts, Dr. Terence Drew, traveled with a small delegation to Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, 11th April 2023 for the World Bank Spring Meetings 2023. Andre Huey of SKN Newsline reports.
Ms. Naima Azel, Permanent Secretary in the Prime Minister's Office, and Ms. Versely Francis, Director of Fiscal Affairs and Policy in the Ministry of Finance, will attend the meetings with the Prime Minister. The activities for this year are being held in Washington, D.C. from April 10th to the 16th. The World Bank Group's and the International Monetary Fund's spring meetings of the Board of Governors bring together central bankers, ministers of finance and development legislators, business executive, members of civil society organizations, and academics to discuss global issues such as the outlook for the world economy, the fight against poverty, economic development, and the efficacy of aid. Seminars, regional briefings, press conferences, and several other events devoted to the global economy, international development, and financial system are also included on the agenda. While in Washington, D.C., the Prime Minister will host a diaspora meeting with Kittitian and Nevisian nationals who live in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area on Saturday, the 15th of April from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. The meeting will take place at the Embassy of St. Kitts and Nevis, located at 3216 New Mexico Avenue, Washington, D.C. The Prime Minister will also travel to Trinidad and Tobago on Sunday, April 16th, for the CARICOM Symposium on Crime and Violence in his capacity as Minister of National Security, accompanied by his Permanent Secretary. Conris Maynard has been appointed Acting Prime Minister in his absence. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
IMF Chief Economist and Director Pierre-Olivier Gorinchas, in an 11th April IMF press conference, talked of indicators for the slowdown in medium-term global growth. Glenn Bart of SKN Newsline has that story.
According to the IMF director, some of the growth slowdown is predictable, but for others, it would be a sign of ominous forces at work.
For emerging market and developing economies, this also means ensuring proper access to the global financial safety net, including the IMF's precautionary arrangements, access to central bank swap lines where relevant, and foreign exchange reserves. Exchange rates should be allowed to adjust as much as possible, unless doing so raises financial stability risks or threatens price stability, in line with our integrated policy framework. Our latest projections also indicate an overall slowdown in medium-term growth forecasts. 5-year ahead growth projections declined steadily from 4.9% in 2011 to 3% this year. Some of this decline is predictable. Growth slows as countries converge. But some of the more recent slowdown may also reflect more ominous forces. The scarring impact of the pandemic, a slower pace of structural reforms, as well as the rising and increasingly real threat of geo-economic fragmentation, leading to more trade tensions, less direct investment, and a slower pace of technology adoption and innovation across fragmented blocs.
According to the IMF, developing and emerging economies such as that of St. Kitts and Nevis, there is a need to guard against inflationary pressures, loose fiscal policies, and unsustainable programs stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic period. Matters relating to the labor market and job creation were also critical in the short to medium term for St. Kitts and Nevis, as indicated in the IMF Article 4 Executive Board Assessment for 2023. Quote, Director emphasized the need for structural policies to strengthen competitiveness, labor market development, and diversification. and an optimal insurance framework against natural disaster risk, and endorsed the authority's strategy to transition towards renewable energy. They supported the plan for a sovereign wealth fund to finance resilient investment and ensure adequate fiscal buffers. Directors welcome efforts to improve the delivery and access to education and vocational training, which should be complemented by active labor market policies to reduce skills mismatches and promote job opportunities. End quote. St. Kitts and Nevis' Prime Minister has already hinted at restructuring several social assistance programs and the strengthening of the economy to improve the country's economic viability. Glenn Bart reporting for SK Newsline.
Jamaica's Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says Jamaica resilient due to strong fiscal management. Javon Keys of TVJ Business reports.
Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says strong fiscal management has positioned Jamaica as a resilient nation when it comes to debt management. He was addressing a forum on overcoming debt during the World Bank and IMF spring meetings. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark says the country's debt management strategy is being strengthened by deliberate steps to reduce the country's exposure to certain risks.
So we have put together a menu of financial instruments, each geared to a different point on that quadrant. On the lower end, we are capitalizing a natural disaster fund, where we have taken resources and set aside that can be drawn down on certain triggers. And we're going to legislate what those triggers ought to be and how the funds can be used.
He says other facilities have also been agreed to as part of the country's fiscal risk reduction framework.
We have parametric insurance that's regionally based through an entity known as the Caribbean Catastrophe Reinsurance Facility. And then we have a layer above that, which is a credit contingent claim, where we have the financing on standby already approved, and the trigger for drawdown would be if there is an event. And then on top of that, a catastrophe bond, which where the payout is very transparent.
Dr. Clark says, however, greater collaboration in the region could make fighting risks less expensive.
One of the things that we're trying to work on is to get other countries in our region interested in a catastrophe bond. So instead of Jamaica doing it on its own, and we did this for the demonstration effect, we have been having dialogue, with the World Bank's assistance with other countries in the region. If we could, in this era where climate change has gathered such attention and focus, if we were to go to the market with a single catastrophe bond that covered the region, the pricing would be better, the coverage would be higher. And that would be an innovation in that particular space.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, has projected that Guyana will achieve an economic growth rate of 32.7% by the end of this year, which is a positive development. However, economist Elson Lowe believes that the figures highlight the government's failure to alleviate poverty, especially given the thriving oil and gas sector. HGP Nightly's Antonio D. has more in this story.
According to the latest World Economic Outlook released by the International Monetary Fund on Tuesday, April 11, 2023, Ghana, in light of its oil and gas sector, is earmarked to record an economic growth of 37.2% in 2023. The report noted that the economy is expected to increase by 45.3% in 2024. However, in 2022, the economy recorded a 62.3% growth. Economist Elson Lowe, via telephone on Wednesday, postulated that the government should shift their attention towards eradicating poverty and securing livable incomes for the small man.
Given these growth numbers, the government should commit to eradicating poverty within the next few years.
He made reference to the arrival of the Prosperity Floating Production Storage and Offloading FPSO vessel, which is currently producing more than 380,000 barrels of oil per day. Against this backdrop, Lowe questioned the government's management of incurred oil revenues, as he believes many Guyanese to date are living in abject poverty.
And so as you see new FPSOs arrive, or you see production increase with the existing FPSOs, you'll see Guyana grow. And so that is one of the main explanations for the fluctuation in the overall GDP numbers for the country.
Alluding to the principles of economics, Low reasoned that the current projected economic growth can be impacted due to the fluctuating oil prices on the global market.
One other point of note is that as we see oil prices fluctuate in the international market, that will have a big impact on the growth numbers because, of course, the oil is the primary driver of much of this growth.
According to the IMF, St. Vincent and the Grenadines has the second highest predicted economic growth of 6% in 2023 and is on the track of a 5% growth in 2024. But financial analyst and economics lecturer Joe Bagundin, in an invited comment, said that the figures by Guyana is a testament to the government's efforts to push for economic sustainability. He noted that oil and gas did not only contribute to the country's significant economic growth, but also agriculture and other commercial sectors.
But we're making some progress in that regard.
So
that is reflected in the forecast. Agriculture, and we see it there. You look at the banking sector, you look at the growth of credit to the private sector, and the growth of credit to the private sector is broken down into categories. So you could measure it. How much more did the banks lend to the manufacturing sector?
Bagundin noted that, like any global economy, there is always more room for improvement. But he staunchly believes the Irfan Ali-led regime is doing a great job. Attorney General Anand Nanadao, during his program Issues in the News, also deemed this a monumental win for Guyana's economy. Antonio Day reporting for the HEP 19 News.
Violence as a public health issue is the theme of a CARICOM symposium, which will be hosted in Trinidad and Tobago next week. Human and Social Development Program Manager Sherwin Tyrone Stevenson said crime is a major regional challenge. Details in this TTT News item.
Violence as a public health issue is the theme of a CARICOM symposium which will be hosted in Trinidad and Tobago next week. Human and Social Development Program Manager Sherwin Tyrone Stevenson said crime is a major regional challenge.
We've also developed a microsite that is going to be launched later on today. So I don't have the exact name of it yet, but it's going to be launched later on today. And citizens can actually log into the website, look at a lot of the background information that caused the symposium to be developed and to be created in the way that it is right now.
The CARICOM program director noted heads of government will be attending the two-day symposium to make presentations on the issue. He added that other experts and regional practitioners will also be speaking at the event.
One of the major concerns for the heads of states and the region has to do with the availability of firearms, which when you look at the statistics are used extensively in a lot of homicide and a lot of violent crime.
The symposium will take place on April 17th and 18th at the Hyatt Regency in Port of Spain.
Trinidad's Ministry of Education and the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus have signed a historic memorandum of understanding cementing the relationship between the entities in an effort to manage, preserve and conserve the Dr. Eric Williams Memorial Collection. TTT News has more.
Campus Registrar at the UWI St. Augustine campus, Dr. Dawn Marie Defoe Gill, said the collection comprises the vast compilation of academic papers, lectures, books, unpublished works, and other pieces of memorabilia. She said this creates more accessibility to the legacy left by the father of the nation.
It is a collection that has been recognized globally for its import and therefore and included amongst UNESCO's prestigious Memory of the World Register, the purpose of which is to preserve the world's historical and cultural heritage, and it cites Williams' indelible contribution to the historiography of slavery.
Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Education, Kurt Meyer, said preserving this piece of history will greatly benefit the people of Trinidad and Tobago, particularly the children of the nation, in whom Dr. Williams took a keen interest.
Hubbards is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at HubbardsHardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.